Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we are taking a look at a replay sent in by RayX88 or Rakes88. Ray? I'm not sure. I'm gonna go with RayX88. That's my guess. But Ray, thank you for sending this one in. We are going to have a good time here. We are on northern waters in the Atlantico. And you guys know that this one is going to be juicy because I get to cherry pick all of the community replays you guys send me and take the best ones. So you already know it's going to be a banger. Now, I will say this. The Atlantico is pretty cracked. It's got one gigantic weakness that most people just do not exploit against it, and that is weakness to fire. HE versus this ship is devastating. Why? Two reasons. One, it has no access to fight fire with fire if it's running the main commander, which most people do run. If you are running that, you don't get fight fire with fire, which means this thing can be set on fire 3 times and still keep going, right? Whereas most people run fight fire with fire nowadays, so like if you get a third fire, it puts the fire out, right? This doesn't do that. But what this does have is really, really solid primary guns and ridiculous secondaries. And by ridiculous secondaries, I mean the main secondaries, which are 100 and sorry, I lied, not 150s. They're 234 millimeter guns. Yeah, they're Cheshire guns strapped to either side of the ship, okay? American main guns, British heavy cruiser secondaries, all right? Ridiculous. And on top of that, you couple that with a ship that is built like a Russian with just turrets everywhere and sitting very low in the water. Why is that a good thing? Well, it makes it very difficult to damage without just doing module damage. So this ship tends to stick around a lot. Which leads me back to my earlier point, talking about HE. HE is your best bet to get rid of this. For 2 reasons. 1, you're going to be able to burn this thing down. 2, you're also going to be destroying those secondaries that are so ridiculously broken in this. Okay? So by hitting this thing with HE, every time this thing gets hit with HE, you're knocking out secondaries. Whether it be the smaller guns or the bigger guns. The bigger guns are a little harder to knock out, but it does happen. But you'll see pretty quickly, this is going to start out a little bit slow, and then it's going to snowball. Because eventually, we will be in range to attack everybody pretty much in this lobby, right? So, one thing I do want to bring up here is that we're going to be rotating our guns a lot in this ship. From left to right, right to left, and so on and so forth. I don't recommend doing that a lot in ships like this, just due to the fact that, like, you can maneuver your ship a little bit easier. This thing has very good agility for a battleship, so you can maneuver your ship a lot easier than you can getting those guns turned. It's quicker to turn the ship than it is to turn the guns a lot of times. Sounds counterintuitive, I know, but trust me. I do it a lot on a lot of slower battleships, or not slower battleships, but slower turning, turret traversing battleships. But look at these secondaries once you get in range. Once you get in range, these secondaries are easily the most, like, ridiculous secondaries in the game. Because no matter what they hit, they are going to pin and they are going to do damage. And then when they don't, when they do hit and do damage, they also have a huge chance of setting fires. Anybody who's ever been on a receiving end of an Atlantico knows just how nasty the thing can be. But that's not to say that the main guns aren't any worse. Like, the main guns are still very, very good as well. They may not be the most accurate in the world, but when you've got ridiculous secondaries and ridiculous primaries, like, it's set up to be a little busted. Now, I personally will take credit for this ship being completely and utterly cracked, okay? Reason being, back when I first played this ship, I said that if this ship got a commander that was specifically set up for the ship itself, a hybrid commander, that this ship would be incredibly broken. And I think that prediction has come to pass. I think we can all agree that this thing is incredibly busted in the right hands, especially with that commander. So I'll take credit for it. Did Wargaming listen to me when they were making the commander? Probably not. Did they make a commander that brings out the best of the ship? Absolutely. So, and that's what I kind of hope for the Carl. The Carl Johan needs that extra help. And look at that accuracy out of the mains. Okay, remember, this is like a secondary build. This is a full secondary build, shooting out to like 12 kilometers with the secondaries, and we're still getting pretty solid accuracy out of the main gun, right? It's exactly what I was talking about. So, you may not have realized it, but with just 2 fires, we're up to 70,000 damage. The mains have been doing the majority of the work. But the secondaries are still chooching away. They keep little tippy-tap-tapping away, and the next thing you know, everybody's on fire. And that's when your damage really starts to skyrocket. But right now we find ourselves in a situation where we are the last ship alive on the right side of the map. Our team is winning the left side of the map, and we control the center cap. Lepanto is starting to charge towards us. We're going to go ahead and shoot high here. Looks like we're going to go for maybe guns and superstructure. We get a couple of hits into the superstructure. The main guns are already starting to fire. Kronstadt gets lit up again. He's within 12 kilometers, so of course the secondaries start opening up on him again. And because we're so far away, these can lob ridiculous islands as well. And we get a fire on the Kronstadt. Now, the Lepanto's actually in a position where he could do some nasty work, and he is shooting HE, which is not good for our secondaries, right? We already talked about this. But our secondaries are still setting fires. Get back. The Lepanto puts out the 1 fire. Kronstadt's still getting shredded, though. So, as the Lepanto closes distance, the Kronstadt's still shooting HE at our bow. It's not the worst situation in the world because we can kind of protect ourselves. The Lepanto, on the other hand, is shooting HE towards the midship, which is where you're going to be knocking out all those secondaries. And that was really accurate right there. Beautiful shot. Up high enough to avoid a lot of that belt armor and get a lot more penetrations. Now, I wonder if the secondaries are going to target the Kronstadt here because he's just on the edge of the 12 kilometers. Yep, I see him going, and there it goes. Will it be enough to kill with secondaries? Are we going to get a first close quarters medal? It's on the way, and... oh, sadness, they actually missed. But we send a salvo of armor-piercing downrange. That should be the end of the Kronstadt. Down he goes. Now we have the Lepanto right here next to us, right on the other side of this island. We're at 130,000 damage, and of course Lepanto's still burning because he put out the 1 fire. So that's always preferable. And then we have 2 other ships out here as well. Lepanto comes out. As we move forward, our secondaries are doing what they're going to do. He's aiming a little too close center of mass here. Let's see what he ends up. He gets the pins. He aims high enough to get above the belt. At that angle, I would have probably shot through the bow side plating there. You'd have a much better angle. But, hey, it worked. He got the damage he needed. Now watch as he starts pushing forward. Now he's within that 12.2 kilometers, and the secondaries from the left side of the ship, who haven't been getting beat up on, are now able to target the Roma. And I imagine this is going to be insta damage as we start stacking up a lot of hits on the Roma. The Italian Navy may be tanky, but even they can't stand up to the fact that this thing has ridiculously cracked secondaries. So now we've got 2 fires going on the Roma. Hopefully he's got his damage con, and it looks like he did. So he's officially damage con, so any fires that we get at this point will be perma-fires. Concentrate fire on the designated target. And when I say things like perma-fires, no, it's not a permanent fire. But what I mean is the fire will burn long enough for the damage controls to still be on cooldown. Okay? That's what we mean by permafires. A lot of people ask me that, and I always forget to explain it. So, for those of you who don't know what I mean by that, that's what I mean. If I call something a permaflood or a permafire, it doesn't mean that they're permanently on fire or permanently flooded. It just means that their damage control is on cooldown, so any fire or flood that you give in the meantime is going to go for a full duration or close to it. Which is devastating, by the way. Now, Roma backs up initially, gets out of secondary range, and then makes the mistake of going forward again. I don't understand it. Like, you get out of the range of the secondaries of this ship, and then you immediately charge right back into the secondary range of the ship, and that's going to allow the secondaries to fire off both sides of the ship. We got the right side firing at the Lepanto, who has decided he wants to sacrifice his hit points to the Atlantico. He has very little health left, and I was going to say, I don't think that shot's going to be particularly good, but it does get into the guns and ends up knocking out a main turret temporarily. In terms of the fight over here, the Roma is in danger of getting a drive-by dev, because whatever battleship that is, I didn't see what it was, but whatever battleship that is, if they get the broadside of that Roma, it should be dev. Or the guy could just ram and be done with it that way. But it is a Kansas too, so it looks like Roma manages to charge forward just in time to avoid getting blapped by the Kansas somehow, or the Kansas screwed that engagement up, but it doesn't matter. He's too close. He's getting farmed by the Atlantico. Atlantico up to 181,000 damage in this game. Just sitting here, just being methodical. You don't have to go all out like I do every single game when it comes to like charging forward. A lot of times it's about like preserving your hit points for as long as possible while still being useful. That's the part that a lot of people get wrong. Like, a lot of people have no problem preserving their hit points until late game. Well, I don't know. Some people still struggle. But the part that they get wrong is they're not being useful while doing it. Whereas in yesterday's video and today's video, you get to see a more methodical battleship captain who knows that they can protect themselves and protect their hit points and stay alive a lot longer, but still maintain their ability to affect the outcome of the match by continuously being able to fire their guns, continuously being in range for their secondaries or whatever, you know, that sort of thing. There is something to be said for that, and we're up to 212,000 damage just like that, because Roma is just like, yeah, I can't be bothered to be looking in the direction of that Atlantico that's tearing me up. I'm just going to sit broadside to it. As we get a fire kill on the guy. 214,000 damage with 2 ships left. How much are we going to end up with at this point? This is a solid game. We love to see it. And we know that Lepanto is right here on the other side of this island. He's got to be low health. And sure enough, he is. Front guns go through a little early, hits the island with a couple of shots, takes a nasty hit from the Lepanto. But at the end of the day, that's why we saved those hit points, right? Because at the end of the game, you can trade those hit points, get rid of the guy, and be fine. And that leaves only one single battleship left. We have 222,000 damage with 11 fires, 156 secondary hits. And honestly, we could have gotten a lot more secondary hits if we had pushed a little bit more during this match. But if he pushed a little bit more during this match, he would have also been taking a lot more damage and potentially lost a lot more secondaries to the Lepanto, who was shooting HE, and those SAP secondaries, plus the Kronstadt that was using the island cover. So you really didn't have an option to push in too crazily. But Gascon is the last thing left and is just sailing around broadside to God and everybody, just waiting for somebody to yeet him. And that looks like it's a pretty solid salvo, so let's see. Oh, nope. I don't know what battleship that is on our left, but it looked pretty good there initially. Just kind of fizzled out. But once again, we're going to have the guns on the right side of the ship, and we're going to be shooting off the left side of the ship, so we're going to be trying to rotate the guns all the way around. This is another example where he could have easily have just turned back to the left, got the guns on the target a lot sooner, and potentially got more damage in this match. So I'm not nitpicking. Well, I kind of am nitpicking, but it's just little things like this that I like to point out, because a lot of people just don't do it. They'll spend the 180-degree turn time on these turrets over and over again during a match, not realizing that adds up pretty quickly. On most battleships, it's 30 to 35 seconds. Some battleships, it's worse than that. I think for the Atlantico, it's like 35 seconds. to rotate these guns 180 degrees. So you're losing 35 seconds of being able to fire the guns every single time you try to rotate from right to left or left to right. So a lot of times it's just as easy or a little bit easier to spend half that time and turn the ship. So let me know what you guys think. Did you guys enjoy this one? It was kind of a I wouldn't say boring replay, but 241,000 damage just by doing his job, staying where he needed to stay, methodically holding onto his hit points and keeping those secondaries and primaries firing. 103 targets hit with the main guns, with 12 fires with the secondaries. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'm interested to hear what you think about this one. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.